white. And today we continue to follow the shit show that is Washington, D.C. and the Trump regime as as we steamroll, as a matter of fact, toward authoritarian rule. Donald Trump and his ilk, the clown car cabinet, are at it again. But also today we mourn the loss of one of America's foremost um, civil rights champions. The Reverend Jesse Jackson passed away at the age of 84. Had a chance to meet and interview the Reverend on several occasions, and we can get into this discussion right now. Brock Ganeles joins us now from the upper Hudson River Valley, right outside New York City, the beautiful confines there. The spring leaves and the foliage should be coming soon, so that's good news. Hopefully things are a little bit cooler up your way, or a little bit warmer up your way. I'm freezing down here, and it's like 55 degrees. I don't know what to do with
It's
myself.
warmer, but I still have a foot of snow on the ground, so I'm not thinking about the foliage. I did not realize that you had interviewed Jesse Jackson. I will say that's impressive to me that you said you've done that on multiple occasions. Clearly,
Yeah,
was a major political figure in our lifetimes.
no
Um,
doubt.
and ran for president a couple times, I believe,
Hmm.
and was in the mix. Was getting 8, 10% double digits, polling at certain times along the way. But I just kind of feel like there needs to be Jesse Jackson paves the way for a Barack Obama, right? It just somebody has to be out there when it seems impossible, but making noise, being a presence, showing that you deserve to be on the stage and can carry the day, can deliver the message, can be out front, and then it makes it seem not so unusual when that
Yeah,
next candidate comes around. And we talked about yesterday, Barack Obama happened to be like this unique, fantastic political talent. But without a
right,
Jesse Jackson, maybe he wouldn't have been as ac-
right.
accepted, right? Maybe he doesn't even get that invite to speak at the convention that triggers his
Mention.
career. You don't even know which part of it, which part of the road was paved by someone like Jesse Jackson, but you got to believe there have to be trailblazers for there to be, that next
Yeah.
person who steps above them.
Speaking of trailblazing, the Reverend Jesse Jackson sure did that. I was introduced to Jesse Jackson at a very early age because he was on the balcony of the Lorraine Motel when Dr. King was assassinated. And there's a famous photo of Reverend Jackson and some other civil rights leaders, I believe Andrew Young and um, wow, I can't remember who was the other person on the balcony with Dr. King when he was shot, but they were all pointing in the same direction as to where the shot came from. It's one of those historic photos that you will see um, probably many times before the Reverend is eulogized and interned. And I see that picture boldly and clearly because at that point I was, my parents were explaining to me why they kept a photo album of and a newspaper clipping album of the civil rights movement. And this was one of the pages in there, a lot of articles about Dr. King and the movement itself. And it stood out to me because I had to know why was Dr. King killed? What did he want? That somebody had to kill him. What was he doing? Right? I thought he was must have been doing something wrong if somebody shot him. Right? As 6, 7 year old kid. Dr. King was assassinated 68 when I was 3 years old. But at the same time, by the time my parents had begun talking to me in earnest about the differences that I was dealing with in a predominantly white school system in the Lakeland School District. It was white America had a problem with Dr. King's message. And I was like, but he had a message of unity. He wanted us all to get along, didn't he? And my parents really didn't have good answers for that as to why we didn't want to get along. Now we have much more clarity because, there's so much money involved in everything, and racism, some say it's good for business, some say it ain't. The prison industrial complex would argue that it is. Um, Citibank would argue that it ain't. So, at that point, though, Jesse Jackson stepped up and carried the mantra and carried the torch in the civil rights struggle. And I would imagine it's not a torch many would have been reaching for. So I take my hat off to him. He came from North Carolina. He was a member of the Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated. So he saw the lunch counter protests in the 50s, up front, face to face, and understood what it was like to be discriminated against. And we don't find a lot of people who were willing to fight back at that time because it was perilous at that point in history.
So as you're speaking, Mark, I'm thinking a few things from the white guy point of view. Number one, maybe I knew it at some point in my life, but I didn't realize that Jesse Jackson was on the balcony when Dr. King was shot, and that Andrew Young was there. That's who's in the photo. Number two, I'm thinking, okay, what was the message that was starting to really rile people up? Is right, he was really talking about the economic message, right, of going on strike, right? He
Yeah.
really moved towards inflicting economic pain and the fact that there needed to be more economic equality for there to truly be civil rights. It wasn't just about voting, right? It was much bigger, a bigger
Hmm.
story. And then the third thing I thought is you're asking that question of your parents of like, why don't people just go and get along and the like, and and now MAGA answers all those questions, right? They just telling us flat out. Elon Musk's out in a tweet, 2 days ago saying, well, this is an English, Scottish, Irish, white America. And that's what, everyone knows it to be. And that's what it has to go back to being, right? Like these white supremacists are telling you exactly why they have no interest in getting along with any people of color because they
Exactly.
think this shit is all theirs. And we got to sweep out all of the others. And as you
Yep.
were talking about the economics of the prison industrial complex, got me to thinking, wow, we got even bigger economics coming down the road with the warehousing of immigrants industrial complex system. Because the government is taking our tax money and just buying up fucking abandoned warehouses
Everywhere.
everywhere they can, and the game plan is to fill them. It's funny, someone was asking me yesterday about, look, oh, what are we doing, or what's really going on with all that, because they don't follow it as closely as us. It's like, well, we're doing what Germany did. We just haven't jumped over. We haven't decided we're going to gas everybody, but we're doing the
Right.
concentration camp thing. So we're all the way up to
Absolutely.
final solution, right? We're just going to quote deport them all. Germany killed all the Jews. We're just going to warehouse them and then figure out where to drop kick
We-
them into another
We're,
country,
we're
maybe,
killing we're killing
or we're
some of
just
them
going to create
already.
this incredible economy for a few owners of warehouses, people
Yeah.
warehouses. Be
Right.
like chicken
And and
coops. Be like chicken coops, right? We're gonna have people, everyone
and
just
it's
like
somehow, yeah, those 83 billionaires, of course, will have products to sell to those warehouse owners. You think Amazon won't be selling jailhouse uniforms, to the owners of these warehouses? You think they won't be selling those trays that they need to eat on, the silverware, and all the institutional equipment that they need to house the others. And that's what it's all about. It's about and it's all about this green machine and creating the green machine at the expense of human bodies and human dignity. You know, Reverend Jackson understood the fact that economic justice and civil rights are inseparable. Like you can't have one without the other, right? And to today, we're still pushing. We haven't made any progress in that area in terms of economic justice. The African American family in Metro Boston is worth
$8.
$8.
Look, and this is where the
You
Democratic
know,
Party's fallen down,
and
and this is
and
where the
and you
criticism's valid of the Democratic Party, because the Democratic Party has done, when they're in power, has done nothing to help the economic equality in America. Right? That's where the corporate Democrats running the show. It's kind of been, when it comes to economic policy, it's been pretty much same old, same old. And no one, that final speech Dr. King gave, right? No one's heeded that call and acted on it. And, I understand that contributes to why Black America is not out on the streets, right? Also now protesting, because, I mean, like, we haven't seen, we really haven't seen much change or difference, no matter who's been in charge. You get the AOCs and the Bernies, they're trying to deliver a message that really actually brings economic justice. I always argued maybe Bernie doesn't bring enough of the racial justice into the picture, but he is kind of talking about the economic justice piece of the puzzle. And, we certainly don't get that from centrist Democrats at all. So Jesse Jackson's made an imprint, an impact on the Democratic Party, but what, 50 years later, 40 years later since he ran, we haven't gotten definitive policies that have made any kind of, dramatic or meaningful change. So, with that, we kind of get ourselves stuck to where we are, still not delivering enough of an aggressive message even to this point in time right now to really inspire multiracial, multicultural, true uprising amongst the people. We just have these smatterings of frustrations throughout all our different silos and groups and have not put it together quite yet. So there's many, we're kind of kicking and screaming, but we haven't organized together, and therefore MAGA continues to roll along and continues to, in essence, maintain all the power. And we may win some skirmishes here and there, but every day we have to wake up and fight another one against another, idiotic, or nefarious policy proposal that Trump and his Project 2025 white supremacy MAGA team have thrown out there. Mark, I think I lost you for a second. So in the breach, I'm going to look at some of the chats that have come in and some of the comments that people are throwing out there. One is related to the attempt by the Trump administration to whitewash history in Philadelphia. Looks like that a court has overturned that one, but it's like just another daily atrocity, daily whitening of America, and an attempt to devalue the contributions to America of anyone except, as Elon Musk defined, the South African Elon Musk defines for us, except anything that's truly coming out of the English, Scottish, Irish heritage. And I think that's been, pretty much, the direction that the oligarchy here in America, the Peter Thiels of the world, the Russell Votes, who has a lot of power, certainly the Stephen Millers of the world, have been dramatically trying to shift American society. And part of that shift is trying to change and, continue to whitewash history. And, for those of you who may be new to watching the show, Mark and I have been saying for years that we already got a propagandized version of American history when we were growing up. 1970s, 80s, public school education mentioned maybe 2-3 black people in the entire year of American history. It was like Harriet Tubman, I think George Washington Carver, and maybe a mention of Martin Luther King towards at the end of American history. Three, throughout the whole time, you'd think that there were no other black people that, except for slaves, that even functioned in American society. Latinos didn't even get a mention at that point. So, like, we really got a white person's version of America and American history. Nothing really went a layer below the surface. We never like self-analyzed anything, even the wars that we got into. Almost every American war was even viewed as, you know, a heroic effort by America until you get to Vietnam, and it's the one conflict where maybe there would be an acknowledgement that not all of American society was in lockstep with going to war. But since the Trump 1.0 kind of played with this a little bit, and Trump 2.0 has just come in and said, you know, we're going to take mentions of slavery, you know, out of the Smithsonian. We're going to crack down on the Black History Museum. Really, everywhere you look, they're looking to kind of readjust our view of what's going on in American society and American history. And, you know, once you sort of erase a people and devalue a people, it makes it easier to get the rest of society to swallow the fact that you're willing currently to deport people. But when we take this type of mentality to its worst case scenario, you can see how Nazi Germany got to their final solution, because they just somehow had a madman that could convince their populace, or didn't tell their populace, that they were going to kill all the Jews, right? They certainly didn't tell everyone that's what they were going to do. But if we're going to sit here in America and create concentration camps where we're warehousing millions, maybe tens of millions, if we hit kind of that Stephen Miller quotas, then we're walking down that same path, because we're dehumanizing, we're, you know, breaking up families, and we meaning the Trump administration and the government is trying to tell its people that they shouldn't care about certainly non-citizens that are living in this country, and in some case even not care about a certain slice of the citizens, that they don't have the same full rights, they don't have the same full freedoms, they don't have the right to be here, and therefore they're trying to get the rest of society to swallow the fact, as we do the prison system, that all these people could be warehoused in these deportation camps, they're trying to call them. But I don't see what the difference is between concentration camps and deportation camps. They're just, they're just kind of buildings and areas that are going to have huge numbers of people in them in subhuman conditions. And if we're doing it on a for-profit basis, we know that the services that are going to go to these people are going to be horrendous, and the conditions that they live in are going to be horrendous. And they're just trying to ask the rest of us not to notice and not to care. And as much as we have finally risen up against masked iced Gestapo on our streets because they're violating the rights of us and our neighbors, the resistance movement is going to have to rise up and push back hard against the fact that our tax dollars are being used to buy these facilities. I mean, that's not really where most of us want our money to go. That we don't think that, we don't even think this is something our country should be doing. But certainly we think that the conditions are horrendous. We think that rights are being violated. And in general, like, this is not a part of what most of us view in line with our value systems. But if we don't rise up and confront the actions of the Trump administration, this is just going to roll downhill. And it's just going to happen. And these warehouses are going to be bought, they're going to be built out, they're going to be staffed, and they're just going to be filled with bodies. because we know ICE is still out on the street snatching bodies, and they need a place to put them. So this mechanism is already in place. It's already happening around us. It's accelerating, and the budget for DHS is huge because the big ugly bill put a lot of money there. They have the money to do this. So it's going to take people and us putting our bodies out on the streets to push back on this rollout, because otherwise it's happening, and otherwise it's just going to happen. So if there's one message today, I'm going to hop off. I guess we didn't get Mark back on. If there's one message today, it's really about actions versus words. And we have three main mechanisms for action, right? One is voting, and for the most part, unless you have a special election around you, most of us aren't going to get a chance to really pull that lever until November. So there's two other mechanisms for action. One is to get out on the streets, which we have to do en masse, which we haven't done in an aggressive enough fashion, and we certainly haven't done in a multicultural, multiracial fashion, because white America has not delivered a message that has inspired others to join them on the streets, and we've been way too polite in the way that we have protested so far. And we're going to need to throw sand in the gears, and we're going to have disruptive protests. And the second is much easier, and that's economic protests. I mean, if you just look, what went on just yesterday with CBS. Nice to see that Anderson Cooper finally resigned from 60 Minutes. Did quietly, though, not with a statement. But the fact that CBS censored and didn't allow Stephen Colbert to show an interview he did with James Tallarico for his late night show, because CBS was worried about getting the wrong side of the FCC, or worried about staying in favor of Donald Trump, just shows you that has become a media property that is now a part of the propaganda network. And if you're part of the resistance, you need to boycott CBS flat out. You just don't even turn on the station. You need to starve them of your eyeballs. In the same way that you have to stop ordering from Amazon, cancel Prime. So many Americans that are addicted to it. Cancel Prime. Stop sending them whatever it is now, $16, $20 a month. Stop being in love with that convenience. You know what? Take an extra minute out of your fucking day and maybe search somewhere else on the internet, and stop feeding the beast. Bezos has already destroyed the Washington Post. He's a part of the propaganda network. You have to make him feel the economic pain. Do the same with Facebook. Zuckerberg's part of the same game. You can get off of Facebook or Instagram. You can actually divorce yourself from some of these platforms. X, if you're still on X, I don't even know what to say to you anymore. I mean, it's a Nazi platform. It's a Nazi platform. If you're still there, please do some self-reflection. You got to get off of X. So I said to Mark has rejoined us again, is that Target can't be the only company that we punish for doing the wrong thing. And we've self-congratulated ourselves for 6 months about the Target boycott, but we've let so many other companies get away with behavior that arguably is worse than what Target did, right?
You're right.
What Bezos has done to the Washington Post, what the Ellison family has done to CBS is just egregious. And it's really just shifting our, thank you. Whack Piece 264 is canceled Prime. Thank you. You know, not that hard to do. We get it. Everybody's busy. It's a great service. We can look the other way on that one. But if we don't make these billionaires who are on their way to becoming trillionaires feel the pain, they're just going to continue to feel like they can dominate the American political system with their contributions, which in then is going to allow them to dominate how our society works. Mark, welcome back. My last point on the boycotts is I saw something today which feels right to me. I haven't done my own homework on it, that Mackenzie Bezos in 2025 donated more money in that 1 year than Jeff Bezos has donated in his entire life.
My life. I believe it. Yeah. Yeah, I did see that as well. She's given to a lot of HBCUs, a lot of to HBCU medical schools. She's been a champion in the philanthropy sector. 2025, she put her name on the map. And
While you're the technical difficulties, I ran with the the concentration camps we're building and how our tax dollars are going to building another for-profit concentration camp system, which is basically everything but the gas chambers, is what we're basically green lighting here. We're not killing
right,
people. We've decided we're going to deport them. At least that's the current plan. And then I got into economic boycotts as a way, just sitting on our ass, we can hopefully make a statement with our dollars, and
right.
collective action there could make a big statement. I don't know if you have anything to add on those two topics or want to take us somewhere else.
No, I'm right with you. Target is not the only offender, right? So why aren't we making these other companies pay as well? Walmart's just as bad. We're seeing so many of these stories, so many of these, big businesses that, just threw their DEI initiatives out the window, didn't care about them. You know, Go ahead and don't trust us. Google it. Use the Google machine. Look and see how many Fortune 500 CEOs are women or people of color, right? And if that's not good enough, go look at their senior leadership. They've got them posted. They've got them posted. But for some reason, the best companies in the world are relying on diversity. And diversity, you're only as strong as your weakest link. And the diversity piece and component um, is something that, again, when we have that reckoning on race, it's got to be right there, at the top of the list. Economic justice has at some point. We need a more fair, more just, society as a whole, as a nation. Um, and I mean, that includes everybody: women, Native Americans, Black folk, brown folk, our Asian American brothers and sisters. It includes everybody because there's enough for everybody. Stop telling me there's not enough. There's enough for everybody to live a good quality of life and a better quality of life if you want to go ahead and do something special. I don't bemoan Bezos for creating something, but how much do you need, bro? And you can't give back, and then you want tax breaks on top of it? Like, come on with the greed, man. The colossal greed is just it's disgusting. I mean, it really is. We got people in the richest country on the planet. Our veterans are living on the street,
But Bezos is a
right? We
great
got
example.
people literally living on the streets.
Bezos and Amazon's a great story of like entrepreneurship, amazing idea, great execution, early winner in the internet, saw what could happen. Look, started with just being a book sales online, right? Which you think maybe is a small business. I get
Right.
all that. Built a behemoth, great American capitalism success story. But then once he gets there, fighting against unionization, right? Trying to keep the workers' pay low, fighting against any changes in minimum wage laws, right? Fighting against regulation in those fucking warehouses. So people are getting injured and steamrolled because they're trying to move so fast with so many boxes, right? So
You're right.
it's like it goes from being a great story that you want, that you root for, and a great American success story, till once they get there, the greed just can't stop. So then it becomes all about squeezing the workers and enriching oneself at the detriment of kind of basically 90% of the people that work there. Maybe not the
Right.
executives, but 90% of the people that work there, and setting a horrendous example for the way American business should operate and should care as a corporate citizen. Remember, we used to use that word, corporate citizen, when it used
Yeah.
to matter
Yeah.
how companies
Yeah.
interacted and how they contributed to society around them. And
Not
that's
no
where I get the
more.
frustration with Bezos. Not that he didn't have a great idea and do something great. He deserves to be a billionaire. But
Right.
but do we need him being a trillionaire at the expense of fucking, you know, not wanting to pay fucking $16 an hour for people who are lifting his fucking boxes all day and going home, like breaking down their bodies?
Right.
So there's
Well,
this
well,
element of fairness that has to come into play somewhere.
the only place these cost of living increases don't exist is in the minds of and heads of these 83 billionaires. They don't think anybody needs any kind of increase in anything anywhere. They don't even think we need a decent quality of air to breathe. I mean, they think the climate hoax is a joke. Look at Greenland. You can't even run your dog sleds across Greenland anymore because the polar ice caps are melting. You used to be able to ride from one side to the other, but I think it was 1,000 miles. I read the write up on Associated Press earlier today. It's all melting away, right? Because it's warming. That's the second half of global warming, right? The ice caps are melting, the glaciers are melting. These are natural habitats. These Iditarod folks used to be able to run their sleds out onto the ice caps on the ocean, on the sea. Not anymore. Not anymore. We've been shitty stewards of the planet, and the leaders of that shitty stewardship are these corporate non-citizens.
We've tolerated way too much bullshit in our lifetimes.
Yes.
And it's coming home to roost now. It came up to roost with the MAGA movement, right? Tolerating and tolerating, be it racism, sexism, shitty corporate stewardship, idiots who are, climate change deniers for decade after decade, pretend, oil companies, you know, paying politicians to pretend like they didn't believe in it. Now like 2 years ago, everyone was like, oh, it's real, but it might not be, man-made. We might not have an impact on it, but we just tolerated it all. And now that we're in Trump 2.0, we need a collective agreement that we're going to stop tolerating this shit and we're actually going
Bullshit.
to do something.
Yep.
And it's not just voting differently. Like, yes, that's a given. Of course we have to vote differently.
Right.
First of all, we have to show up and vote.
That part.
It's that part. So we can't have like turnout rates like in the 40s, 50s at best,
Right.
So we have to turn out to vote, not be defeatist and say nothing ever changes. And we have to stop feeding these beasts that are chewing us up and spitting us out and not caring. The story that got me today is supposedly Facebook is taking its billions in cash flow riches that we've all flowing to them by our eyeballs on their fucking platform, and they're gonna create the technology so after somebody dies, that person can, with AI, can live on in their virtual world and still chat and stay in the conversation. And I don't even know, who knows, create, because they're going to use the AI to figure out how that person would have reacted.
Answered? Oh,
So
God.
therefore they don't have to lose any users, because even when you die, they're just going to roll on, and the machine is going to act as if it's you.
Ew.
I don't
That's
know if that's
disgusting.
true, but it's fucking, I believe it. I believe anything Zuckerberg would do. I believe anything
Right.
Musk would do. They don't care
Right.
about any, humane element to their businesses, right? It's just maybe another way to make a little bit more money, because maybe now you're going to want to see what grandpa would have said about your T-ball game, right?
Right.
Even though he died 8 years ago.
Right. Oh gosh, it's disgusting to me. I just,
I guess that's
you
my
know,
quick hit of the day.
I didn't like Zuckerberg from the movie Social Network, and I still don't like him. I still think he has the second most punchable face in America, next to Ted Cruz. Um, but who am I to judge? All right, quick hit for me. Elena Myers Taylor, you got me watching the Olympics. I got stuck on the monobob. I didn't even know they called it the monobob. But wow, a 41-year-old mother of two kids with Down syndrome, most decorated woman in
One
Olympics
Down
history.
syndrome. Two, they're both deaf.
Bo-
Both
Both
deaf.
deaf. Unbelievable.
One has Down syndrome.
And she's been such a champion for the community, um, that she said it is the letters and the support from people who, have never met her, but just wrote to her because they found out about her story and inspired and uplifted her. And she won that gold medal, her first one, by what, 4/100ths of a second,
Yeah.
something insane like that. It's like not even it's less than a finger snap. And man, the competition was fierce, with her, the German competitor, and then her teammate,
Yeah, was right
also,
behind.
yeah, was in the running too. So, man, that was some exciting stuff. You were right. It is awesome to watch.
We only have six gold medals. She has one of them. She became the most she tied Bonnie Blair for, who was a speed skater 20 years ago, for the
Yeah,
medals for an American woman in the Winter Olympics at six,
yeah.
but she never won gold. Mark, I never heard of her till 3 days ago, so I missed her first five medals. Then I started hearing the story about her. Oh yeah, I was at the edge of my seat watching that mono bob.
The mono bob. Wow. That next thing you know, we're gonna have the Jamaican mono bob team. I can't wait to see them perform. But man, some great stuff. I did watch the pairs figure skating last night. The Japanese team won their first medal ever, and it was a gold. Their routine was phenomenal.
You watch that,
Um,
right? And the guy was bawling his eyes out, right?
Crying like a baby.
Woman was stone faced, like she expected it. The guy was like falling to pieces.
Yes, it was awesome. It was awesome. The Americans struggling in figure skating, but nonetheless, some great stories emerging. Um, and that's what it's all about, man. Being able to cheer for someone, for something amazing that they've accomplished, and not caring who cares that they were who cares where people come from? I'm interested in their stories, right? And what makes them who they are. And that's why I was a television reporter. And I got out of it when we stopped being able to tell honest stories, like Stephen Colbert, unable to interview James Tallarico, right? Because
Yeah.
CBS is scared about Brendan Carr. It's ridiculous. But
We
that's what makes the Olympics great, is the
we
stories behind the athlete.
so we have three women in the figure skating singles, right? It's the last event for figure skating, right? It's kind of the marquee
Okay.
event, the women's figure skating. Three.
Hmm.
Alyssa Liu, Asian American. I forget her name, Amber something, and I may get this slightly wrong. Her mother's Italian from Milan, speaks Italian. I think like a first, an immigrant, an Italian immigrant.
Uh-huh.
Um, and oh God, who's the third? Right, and the third one, right? so, so that's the melting pot of just this one team of three athletes, and that's the American
Right.
team, right?
Right.
That's the American
Well,
team. From all
well,
over the world is the American team.
absolutely. Remember Carla DiClemente, a classmate of ours at Walter Panis High School? Her nephew is on the men's speed skating team.
Oh, I didn't
And
realize it.
oh yeah, and it was on the Italian American Facebook page, and I shared it and posted it on my page. But we are a melting pot, and that's what makes this place so great. Um, and that's partly why we have the problems that we have, right? Because everyone doesn't want it to be a melting pot. There are so many people that think it's still theirs, and you know what? In the meantime, we'll enjoy this 2 weeks of Olympics. Um, uh, uh, at your urging, I went ahead and recorded all the remaining hockey games, right up to the gold medal match.
It's
So
coming.
I
Men's are
wore
in the
my main
same.
hockey. I wore my main hockey jersey to represent Jeremy Swayman, Edward Trawl Marks on the Latvian team, Jeremy Swayman on the U.S. team, So yeah, we'll represent the Black Bears, well represented in Milan.
I'm glad I
Milan.
got you hooked. There's like I think 5 or 6 days left, so it's almost all
Yeah.
like it's all metal activity right now. And I find it funny. My last comment of the day is one of the commercials I saw. Oh, I can't remember what company it was for, but like literally their tagline was like, for 2 weeks we're all on the same team, which was literally their marketing to America. That like for 2 weeks we can remember that we're all Americans and root for our athletes in the back of their head, probably
Brilliant.
knowing that as soon as the Olympics ends, like
Right. We go back to stabbing each other.
that's not really where we are right now. But
Yeah.
it was a good marketing hook by some ad agent.
Right. It wasn't a diaper commercial, was it?
I don't think so.
All right, folks, that's it for us. We'll be back tomorrow with another exciting edition of 2 Men in Black and White and
All
Honest
right.
Conversation. All right,
Thanks
B.
for hanging with us through the technical difficulties. Mark, always a pleasure. Talk to you
Yes,
tomorrow.
sir. Peace.